So this is part 6 of the Babylonian credit debt system, and I ended part 5 rather abruptly because my camera only allows so much time for recording. So at the end of part 5 I was saying that it was Eustace Mullins who blew the whistle on the Federal Reserve System, and all works thereof are either plagiarism of Mullins' work or just simply repeating what Mullins has already told us. Now the federal, it's not the U.S. government. It does work with the U.S. government, but it is not the U.S. government. It is an independent bank, and it has no reserves, nothing. It backs nothing. It has no gold, no silver, nothing to back anything that's printed. And as Mullins likes to say, it's a syndicate, not a system. It's wealthy bankers who got together to control the flow of money in the United States, printing it without anything to back it up. So the more that is printed, that is Federal Reserve notes, the less value of the Federal Reserve notes you hold in your hand. And that's just common sense. The more of anything that's in circulation, it makes what you have of less value. So I have a little cartoon-like character here at the bottom, yelling and screaming, "Help! Help! My dollar's getting worth less." And then you have the government yelling, "Keep printing! Keep printing! Keep printing!" So the more that's printed, the less value of the one you hold in your hand. So that was the end of part 5, and now we'll go to the topic for part 6. We're back to the Bank of the U.S. There were 2 of them, and first one was 1791 to 1811, and the second one was 1816 to 1841. Now what happens is President Andrew Jackson does not renew the charter, and so there was a little bit of an outrage against Andrew Jackson. But what Jackson did was put the banking system into the hands of the states. Now the states were intended originally to be sovereign, that each state would be sovereign, and that's a whole nother series and a whole nother couple of hours to talk about that. But banking goes to the states, and so in a sense there is no central bank, but each state sort of functions like a central bank for that state. So what happened to Jackson? Was he a hero or a rebel? Well, it just depends. Now he was a hero to the states because he took the flow of cash and put it in the hands of what should have been sovereign entities, the states. Now he's a rebel in terms of those who wanted everything, the flow of every dollar, every piece of gold, every coin, to be in the hands of the federal government. So he created a void. Jackson creates a void. There's no central bank. in the U.S. Now that void is going to get filled here, and we'll talk about that next. Oh, incidentally, before I go to that, these central banks that did exist, most likely, and I say most likely, they were connected to, if not a significant part of, the Bank of England. Now you say that doesn't make any sense because the U.S. broke from England. Well, what folks don't understand is war is profitable for everyone. In other words, wars are bankers' wars. So, how did the U.S., at the time being just colonies, how did they get the money to fight a war? Of course, obviously a big debt was created. And where did that debt originate from? Most likely the Bank of England. You'd be surprised to learn how it doesn't matter. Bankers really don't take ethical stands in the sense that they want a certain side to win. They know that war means one thing: lots of profit for their bank, regardless of where the money goes. So there's a void, there's no central bank, and there will be a conspiracy on Jekyll Island. Now, I have to chuckle because if you're familiar with Robert Louis Stevenson's book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you'll realize that probably this was chosen intentionally. Dr. Jekyll, the calm doctor, and Mr. Hyde, the beast that emerges out of Jekyll, Robert Louis Stevenson. So I just find it interesting. Now in 1910, secretly, a group of very prominent and wealthy bankers will meet on Jekyll Island, and they will come up with a plan, and they will give a name. Federal, meaning universal. Now, most everyone, when you say the word federal, they think of government. Sorry about that. They think of government. But actually, federal can mean universal, not necessarily government. Reserve, well, most everybody thinks in terms of supplies. Well, guess what? Have you heard of the reserves? The U.S. Army Reserves, the National Guard Reserves? They back up the lead, but they are not the lead. In other words, it's not a bank of the United States. It's sort of a backup. And then they use the word system. Well, they completely avoided the word bank because they're telling you the truth. It's not a bank. It is not the Bank of the United States. Period. So we never got a third Bank of the United States, but we got a system. I hope some of this is making sense because I'm jumping out of my role a little bit, but I'm going to try to get back to biblical text here in a couple minutes, so hang in there with me. So the entire flow of currency is completely in the hands of independent bankers using a system to regulate the economy of the U.S. with the printing of legal tender and not offering lawful money. Now, what's another way of saying that? Well, you played the game of Monopoly, and you used what you thought was money in the game. We spent many, many hours playing Monopoly. Sometimes the games would go on for 2 or 3 days. We had money, but it was phony. Now the banks under the U.S. government had to produce and offer lawful money. In other words, when I was growing up, if I had a silver certificate in my hand for $1 US dollar, and I could take that silver certificate down to my local bank, and I could get 10 silver dimes, or 4 silver quarters, or 2 silver 50-cent piece, possibly even a silver dollar. Now, you're in a system that doesn't do anything like that at all. The only thing it will tell you is your dollars are safe because we offer FDIC. Now, if someone told me, and I'm not sure, I haven't looked into this, but they'll say, yeah, we can repay you all that's in the bank, but we can take 99 years to do it. Now, I don't know. I haven't looked it up carefully. I was trying to look it up one time, but I didn't get too far. I even asked at a bank, and most clerks at the bank won't know anything like that. But FDIC just simply says, you'll eventually get your money back. But when? You could possibly be dead and in the grave. So my mother told me that when the Depression hit, she had some money in the bank, and it wasn't really necessarily that she earned it. It was given to her as a gift. She was a young lady, a little girl, and she said there was a considerable sum, maybe back then it was $500, and she couldn't get it right away, but she did get it about 10 years later. So FDIC is similar to that. It is saying, yeah, you'll get your money back, but I think they put a provision on there that they will do it in their time, not your time. So let's get to the Bible texts, and you might feel a little better about this series and me mumbling if I at least get to some Bible texts. So Revelation 6:6 is about the end of the end times, and a voice comes from the midst of the 4 beasts saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, that's King James, or a quart of wheat for a denarius, a day's wage. Now, in ordinary times, a denarius could buy maybe 12 quarts of wheat. So I'm trying to show it here in my illustration. That 1 denarius would buy 12 quarts of wheat, ordinarily. 1 denarius, 12 quarts. But things are so bad under this Babylonian system, because there's been all kinds of turmoil on the earth, a denarius, a day's wage, only buys 1 quart of wheat. I served a farming community in an interim pastorate, and there was a young farmer there that was constantly aware of this verse, because he was a young farmer. And he was aware that he has to take his crops to get exchanged for money. And he was really aware of this, that the day will come when a person's money won't buy much at all in terms of what the farmer's producing. Now, the Babylonians who live under the system and control it, the Babylonians who live and control the system are in and under the control of the devil. They use the credit-debit system to create economic chaos. And I just gave you that scripture, Revelation 6:6. Now, to make matters worse, in the end of the end times, a mark is going to be placed on those individuals who worship the beast, and then they are permitted to buy and sell. But if you don't have the mark, the 666, you cannot get into the economic system to buy or sell. Don't worry about it, I got you some answers on that too. All right. So, these are my conclusions, plural. And I'm going to have to end this series because I don't think I can go on and on and keep anyone interested, even though I'm very interested in what I'm doing. Conclusion number 1. God always provides for his people. When they were out in the wilderness, there was manna. There was quail. There was water. God always provides. Scripture says in the Psalms, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or begging for bread. Now, God counteracts this mark of the beast, the buying and the selling. He has his own mark on people. And you can find that in the prophet Ezekiel, where people are marked who don't get involved with the abominations in the temple. You can find it in Exodus, whereby the blood of the lamb is over the doorposts. So don't worry about this. No buying and selling unless you have the mark. Now, we have no choice right now, pretty much. That the system is basically the only thing that's in front of you. You have some slight alternatives here and there, but mostly the counsel is avoid debt. Because the debt will swallow you up, no matter what it is. And I've already told some stories on that. With my cousin losing her trailer and then losing her house and being almost destitute. Young lady who bought a brand new car and couldn't afford to do anything else except pay on the car. The good news is Babylon will fall. Babylon will fail. And that's Revelation 14:8, Revelation 18:2. In other words, the system will go kaput. And better news yet, Jesus is coming. So be prepared. Christ is coming. That is our blessed hope. Thank you for watching this. End of video.